Hey, I am super excited to bring you this conversation that I had with Margo Annett. She's a voice and performance coach at the University of Oxford and the University of Bedfordshire, where she helps hundreds of students overcome their fear with confidence and prepares them for the world of acting and performing. Now, she did a tremendous amount for me when I was at university. She helped me overcome my own fear of confidence, so I owe a huge debt of gratitude to her. So it made absolute sense to bring her on for this first interview, and I hope you enjoy this very interesting conversation with Margo Annett. Okay.
Right.
Margo, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I've actually been waiting a very long time for this. I didn't let you know. I had this in my mind for a long time.
That's ominous.
But as you know, we only discussed this a couple of weeks ago, didn't
Yeah.
we? And I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to start some sort of kind of interview format where we'd interview people who could give us advice on how to be a top performer at work. And
Right.
I know with your work, you do a lot with confidence.
Yeah.
And in particular with acting and performing.
Yes.
What's been your experience in the last few years with students? Have they been quite approachable when it comes to confidence?
I think that's quite difficult because I think things have changed so much. No, I think that they're confident in some areas and not in others. They're all much more self-conscious than they used to be. They're very self-conscious about the way they look, and they seem to want to conform in a strange sort of way. Well, so that they do seem to lack confidence in that way, that they seem to find that they want an identity, whether it's sexual or whatever it is, fashion, or it's a really curious thing. Which I don't think, I can't remember ever happening before to this extent. And whether it's social media, I don't know. I mean, they find it more difficult to communicate, which again makes it more difficult. So in a way, they're more closed off than they were before. I think that's true.
That's okay. Now, as you know, with my work, I'm so fascinated by performance at work, whether that be in a performance setting or a work office environment. And in my 12 years of employment, I came across a lot of people who lacked confidence and quite frankly didn't believe in their own ability. And I know we discussed this a few weeks ago, that sometimes the people you work with don't actually believe what they're capable of.
No, that's absolutely true. I think, as I say, I think it's because because of the celebrity thing, which is a whole new thing, they have an idea, they're given a very false idea of what they should be like. Yeah. Because I think you could blame advertising, you can blame everything, but they're all aware of models. Whether that goes online, I don't know, but I suspect. And it's like YouTube, that they seem to be so split between what is happening in actuality and how they're appearing in this sort of artificial world. Which is a pretend world, really, because to be honest, on YouTube you can put, or not YouTube, all those things, Instagram, all those things that they'd love. Snapchat? Snapchat. Yeah. I mean, they can produce and make a whole new persona, but then when it's face to face, they feel insecure, I think.
I remember quite fondly when I came to university for the first time, and you may remember the first session you did with all of us, and I was actually quite frightened. When I came to performance for the first time, this was my first exposure to media performance. I'd never done media at college, so this was really my first time. And I remember coming into the theatre at the time, and 15, 20 students. I remember I was one of the last ones to come in. And my natural reaction was to sit on the end. But I remember the first instance when you approached us, I think your first goal was just to make us comfortable. Before we even did anything, just to be at ease with the process. Do you find many people come into your environment nervous, as I did?
Oh, I think so. It manifests itself in different ways. Some people are very quite sort of defensive, and so they're right. Who am I? Right, this is where I am, and it takes ages for them to sort of calm down. And then other people, as you say, are trying to sit at the back, and I won't let that happen. No. And I must say, I suppose I've been teaching for a long time. And when I first started to teach, I was terrified. I remember the first time I taught to a lot of people was at Mount View, and I had to do this thing that was called a warm-up. And I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I was an actress, okay? Yeah. And I thought, then this woman had told me that I must go and teach them this, and this other people had said, you've got to do a warm-up. And I thought, what on earth is a warm-up? So all I did, I brought some pop music because I thought, okay, I used to be a dancer. So I thought, okay, one thing about dancing is it loosens you up. So I played pop music and I made them dance for ages, and then I made them do some games and everything. But I was absolutely terrified. And I thought, well, I'm terrified, therefore they're going to be terrified. Exactly. So ever after that, I always made a point of telling people, you know, as I got more used to it, I said, introduce myself and notice where they sat and made sure that they did come forward. And I always try and eyeball people. I always try and learn their names. I mean, to be awful is a terrible thing, is Sabir, not in your case actually, but usually I forget their names after they've left. Probably shouldn't say
it's
that.
It's difficult. You've got 20 people to remember.
But what I do, and I work really hard at it, is I try and learn their names as quickly as possible. Sure. Then they do terrible things like change their hair color, and I'm absolutely stuck.
Which one are you?
Yeah, exactly. But I do try, because I think that is tremendously important to giving them. It sounds silly, but I remember once ages ago, before I started teaching properly, a friend of mine was teaching at a place in a college in South London somewhere, anyway, South Lambeth or something like that. I can't remember something. Anyway, I had no idea. And she said, would I go in? And I was an actress, so I said, okay, I'll do drama with them and everything else. And I did. I said, introduced myself, this is that. And I said, I really don't know what, this is what I am. I'm not a teacher, but who are you? And they all introduced myself. And I called this boy, and he was called Junior. And I said, Junior, will you? And he said, you're the first teacher that has ever called me by my name. First name. Wow. And I thought, Junior was about 14, and I thought, that is a disgrace. I was so horrified.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, even someone at his age, at 14, for him to be taken aback by that.
I was horrified, absolutely horrified. But that was a long time ago.
It shows how powerful it is.
Oh, Sabir, I remembered it so much, and I was so hurt on his behalf. I thought, that is terrible. I mean, it wasn't that big a class. I mean, sometimes there was, I suppose, about 20, but not more.
No more, sure.
And I thought, no, you've got to learn people's names because it's their identity. It doesn't matter about their surname. It doesn't. I mean, it's the name that they're known as. It's their name, and they can lie and give me another name. I don't care, but it's a name they want to be known as, and it's their personality.
Yeah.
It's so important. So, I think that then it makes them feel as if they belong.
Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to speak to you about was, since I left university, there's one thing that you taught us that's always stuck with me. And that is the pronunciation of words. And whenever I'm speaking, because you may remember when I started, I found it extremely difficult to finish my words and sentences.
I know.
And you used to advise me, look, you have to kind of cut that out. If you want to do this media performance. And the one advice that you gave was, when you finish saying something or a sentence or a word, keep your mouth open. I think most people are inclined to close their mouth when they finish a sentence.
That's true. It's cutting other people off.
Yeah, and it's difficult to always do that, I'll be honest.
Really?
Yeah. But sometimes I have to stop myself and say, no, keep your mouth open when you finish a sentence. Why is that important?
Oh, for a number of reasons. I mean, certainly, first of all, if you close your mouth, you're tightening.
Yeah.
So it's cutting, it's like that. I have to think to do it, so it's like that. And it's as if I've shut down.
Right.
And then, technically speaking, there is the sound goes on underneath. If you keep your mouth open, the sound then can travel to the other person. Right. That's why people don't always hear the end of people's sentences. And if you notice the way that I speak, I have an upward inflection at the end of every line, and that is it's theatre. Yes.
So that's intentional. Have you worked on that?
I've done it for so long, Sabir, that I can't remember not doing it. But yes, it is. I mean, I must have been taught it. I mean, I didn't go to drama school as such. I was a dancer. I went to dance classes. But what I did do, I went into rep, and therefore I was taught by other actors saying, darling, are you going to do it like that? And then, darling, what exactly? So they taught me how to do it, and I guess they taught me.
Okay.
And it's because it's called playing the end of the line. But what it is you're not only getting the sound going, but you're sending a message through that final word. And if you were acting, you would call it subtext. But in ordinary conversation, you're inviting a response, whether it's going to be a verbal response.
So it helps the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
On,
or it's just you're giving them what you're saying. Whereas I think a lot of people, they speak with their mouth half open or half closed, or something like that, and they're not. It's as if they're holding back themselves and not giving what they're saying to the other person.
Do you think that's linked with confidence? Because I certainly used to do that. I remember my parents, when I was growing up, used to have a go at me for doing that. I used to mumble my words quite often. Do you think there's a link with confidence?
Oh, definitely. It's because it's so difficult, Sabir, because the whole thing about speech is so, because I started off at drama school, not teaching acting, but teaching voice. I don't know, it's a whole series of events, which is too boring to go into. Anyway, but so I went and learned about voice, and it was really interesting. And just working with actors and non-actors over the years, the voice is such a personal thing, and in some cases it's because of the very early age. I mean, you think about it, a baby can make the most almighty noise. It can scream and scream for hours, and it doesn't lose its voice, and sadly it doesn't stop. And as any mother will tell you, especially in the middle of the night. Now then, as the baby grows older, it learns that making a noise is bad,
right?
Because the mother says, no, please, you can understand why. It's a noise, not good. Then you begin to learn to speak, and you're copying what the adults are saying, aren't you? Now, sometimes at home you say something that you've heard your adults say, and they say, no, you mustn't say that, that's naughty. So oh dear. So now you learn that some words are all right and some words are not. And then you go to school, and this is the real killer, because not only you've got teachers, you say, you've got your peers, and they're the cruelest of all, because they bring in all their judges, because they're all frightened. They're judging you for every time you open your mouth, and some things are okay to say, and some things they tease you about. So speech suddenly becomes this absolutely terrifying territory, because it's attached to judgment, and people are either going to tease you or dislike you or get angry with you. So it's not a free place. It's a very, very scary place. So they learn to tighten their voices, and that's why people have so many problems with speech. You don't even know. I mean, we've all been through it. It's because the playground is one of the cruelest places in the world, I think. Really cruel. And it depends whatever happens at home, or whatever happens with your family, or it can be outside, or with a teacher. There's all these variables depend on how you end up speaking when you're an adult.
Sure. That's interesting. I think many of us, including myself, often underestimate the importance of correct communication. It's not just about, let me say something to someone. It has to be effective.
Yes.
Right? And we communicate all the time, regardless of which industry we go in. Whether performance students go into acting or not, they'll be in an environment where they have to interact.
Absolutely.
What kind of tips can you give to someone who's looking to improve their vocal ability without, say, any sort of training? Are there any exercises that they can do at home?
Well, yes, I think there are quite a few. I mean, I think the most, it's going back to being a baby. And I think there's lots of work being done on it, but I do think the breath is important, because I think if you the simplest thing, and that anybody can do without doing, worrying about doing exercises that are heavy or anything else, is just to breathe out before you speak, because most of the time people are holding their breath. And if you watch people, you'll be surprised how many people go to speak and they go,
they tense up.
And not only that, they're breathing in and they're speaking, and I'm holding my breath as I speak now. Can you see what I'm doing? Of course.
Struggling, absolutely.
Do you see? And so many people speak on an intrusive breath rather than exhaling. And so letting the breath go is the one trick that is so easy.
That's a good tip. I like that.
And you can, And you can do that. And you can, I mean, that relaxes the shoulders.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the number one tip I'd give anybody, because anybody can do it.
Sure. And are there any signs, say you're in a conversation with someone in an office environment, are there any signs from the person you're speaking to that the way you're speaking is not right? Are there any telltale signs
that what I'm saying is wrong?
Yeah, or the way you're delivering something isn't correct. Can you tell by someone else's reaction ever? Was it something
that's quite a hard one, because I'm so used to communicating, if you like. I mean, I just keep going till they do. So I just try something else. I mean, if somebody's not reacting right,
you have to try.
I try.
Else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. Like, I suppose it's difficult because I've been doing it for such a long time, and in acting, when you go for an interview, you're dependent on them liking you. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you the job. But I think there's a thing the Americans say, which I think is probably becomes an instinct, which is mirroring. So if somebody is sitting there like,
you should do the same.
Then you do the same.
Okay.
So that you make your language more correct, and you say, because they want to be formal, therefore you say, "How do you do? I'm delighted to meet you, and how nice of you to see me," etc. But if somebody's sitting like that, you think, "Okay, this is okay. So let's relax." And and I think as a performer, the thing about performers, I've got a friend who says, we're tarts really, because we try and make people like us, and we do. So I think we do it instinctively because we're trying to make that other person like us.
Absolutely.
I think, as I say, in answer to your question, I think I just keep going till whatever happens until they do respond.
Just believe in your delivery style.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
been working for you for many years.
I just changed my attitude. I mean, I remember thinking when I was teaching a long time ago with people, I mean, because when I first started teaching at the drama school, not at uni, but at the drama school, I used to have to do tutorials. People used to come, and to be honest with you, they're meant to be voice tutorials. What they're mostly about is, I miss my, or my boyfriend's horrible, or whatever, whatever it was.
So you have to act as a counselor.
Exactly. Well. And then we try and find out, how it would help their acting and how my wife was getting in the way of their performance. So it became a sort of vague therapy, I suppose. Anyway, I found that what I did find was, because, as I say, sometimes people are defensive and sometimes, it's difficult. But everybody's got a key, and you just got to find the key.
Right.
So it is, because we're all human. I think people get a lot of fear of other. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear of other human beings.
How they're going to see us.
It's crazy. Because I say we're all, I mean, the one thing one knows as being an actor is that when you look at a part, you take yourself and you think, okay, that's me. And we've all got this, I mean, sadly, the bad things and the good things, they're in us all, aren't they, to different degrees?
You're right. And I guess in the acting world, you're always being judged, whether that be through an audition.
Yeah.
You're always being judged by someone else.
Oh, always. Of course you are.
And I always found it fascinating how well-known actors, there's always stories you hear about suicide attempts for actors, Hollywood actors. And at first, I just couldn't make sense of it. Why? They're leading a successful life, they're in this movie, that movie. But then it made sense, because I remember when I did the road performance at university, even though it was for 2-3 weeks with the third-year director.
Yes, I remember.
I remember coming out of that feeling very low.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't share it with anyone at the time, because I was very confused. I thought, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
And then when I hear about these stories, it kind of makes sense, because you immerse yourself in another person's character, and then in a click, it's over.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of go back.
And you feel lost.
And I know I was only doing it for a few hours a day, but it felt like I was doing it all day and every day. And when I came out of it, I thought, oh, what shall I do now?
No, exactly.
So it kind of makes sense.
That's trouble. You're absolutely right, and people don't realize that. I think that the character takes you over.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's a friend of mine. Joss Ackland, he was in a play once. It was quite a while ago now, because he does movies. But anyway, he was in this very successful play at Hampstead Theatre Club, and he was playing this awful prison officer that was very violent and sadistic. And the play was a great success, and they wanted to move into the West End, and Joss said, no, I can't. I can't live with this man any longer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was, and I completely understand that, because they do, because you are them. And he couldn't just bear that, because he couldn't get rid of him when he came home. It's horrible. So yeah, that's absolutely true. So you feel bereft.
You do.
Yeah. And also because the other thing, which is really hard, is when you're in a film company or in a company at all, it's very close and you get to know them so well. And when it all ends, then you've got to go back and you leave them and you feel lost.
It becomes a little family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like losing a bit of your family.
Absolutely, yeah. And it felt like that, actually.
It does.
Yeah.
There's a great closeness, and I mean, people laugh at actors for saying "darling" and all that. Well, we do because it breaks down barriers, and because you've got to get close so quickly. But they mean it. It's not false. People say, "Oh, it's lovey and this," but it's not. It's actually you genuinely. Yes, you work with some people you don't like, but that's quite rare. Mostly, people get on very, very well, and because they're each dependent upon each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're only as good as the people that you're with, really. It's really hard if they're no good.
True. Now, just a moment ago, you touched upon how we have to perhaps sometimes put on a persona when we're in front of people to try and get the role or get the job or get the promotion, whatever it is. How does one work on a persona, say, in a working environment? And is it very different to their normal self when they're at home?
I think you have to say to, because some people are very uptight about this and say, "Oh no, I can't do it. I'm not in that room." But actually, they are, because we all do it to a much lesser degree than acting. But we all do it. We're all, if you think about it, the way we talk to our parents is different from the way that we talk to our friends.
True.
And if even within that, we talk to each of our friends in a different way, because they need different things from us. So we are responding in a different way. You know, we're very contradictory as humans. I think people think, "Oh, this is what I am." And no, one is a lot of different things. So it's just extending that thing that we do automatically. I mean, if you go, if you want to get money from your bank manager, you're not going to talk to him like you talk to your mum, are you? Because you won't get very far. And so we do it. So I think as long as you point that out to them, you're saying, "Look, you are doing it. What we're doing is just extending this." The other thing I think is that so many people are self-conscious, that they're thinking about themselves so much. Whereas I think the trick is to try and get a response from the other
person.
Because then, I used to say to somebody who was going for an interview, I said, "Okay, it doesn't matter, but when you go to the interview, see if you can tell them the color of their eyes, because that stops you." It's a silly thing, but if you look at the color of somebody's eyes, you're actually looking at them, and you're looking in order to see. Because often we look at people and we don't see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that could be practice, say, if you're approaching a manager for a promotion, for example. Focus on their eyes.
Yes. Just look at the color of their eyes. And the other thing I think, as I always say, that is to make them feel at home. Instead of bothering about you, make them feel at ease. Because if somebody makes you feel at ease, you're more likely to want to please them than if you're nervous. I mean, we're all nervous in those things, like, because you've got a lot. If you're asking for a rise, you've got a lot to lose. I mean, and you want to get the rise. But on the other hand, if you go in there as being nervous, so much of nervousness comes off as defensiveness that it then puts their back up, because they think, "Why is this person nervous of me? What's going on here?" Whereas if you're going in there, however nervous you are and however funny your tummy feels, and you're going in there looking at his eyes and trying to make him feel at ease, it's taking your brain away from worrying and thinking about the other person. So you're playing tricks with yourself, really.
Yeah. Now, you've worked with hundreds, thousands of students and helping them in their performance. Do you remember situations, or a particular situation with one student who was so nervous before a performance that even you didn't know, maybe, what shall I do next? Did you come close to that situation where you had to kind of intervene and really say, "Look, this is what you need to do"?
No, I don't think I've ever done that. No, I think I've always talked about nerves, because when I was acting, I used to get very nervous, and therefore it's something that sort of occupied my mind. And I realized there's two things that I talk to them about, but I usually preempt it before the actual day, because I think that's a little late. So we usually talk about it early on, because I usually say some people, some of you naturally, and it's absolutely true. I mean, some very famous actors who've done endless performances, get very, very nervous. And to be honest, what is from bitter experience, to work without nerves is the most terrifying thing, because two things can happen. Either the whole performance is completely like that because you've got no adrenaline, or the nerves come and get you halfway through, in which case it's absolutely terrifying. So I said to them, always face the nerves, welcome them, because they're part of the performance. And that adrenaline you need, because that adrenaline means that you are capable of noticing so many things at the same time that you can act upon. But also it gives a bite to your performance, and it makes you, it's how you can get your emotions so quickly to respond. And also the sort of thing, if you look a bit at nerves, the symptoms for fear and excitement are the same. Yeah.
What are the symptoms?
Well, the thing is, it's the unknown is facing the unknown, isn't it? So you get the bubbles up here. Your tummy's in a bit of a turmoil. If you're not careful, this is why you hold your breath, which I say why let the breath go. And there's other physical tricks you can do. For example, I was taught that, which is absolute true, and it sounds so silly, but if you've got space between your fingers.
Okay.
Yeah. So lots of it immediately calms you down.
Is this something you do before performance?
Yes. Because that's why. I've worked with so many actors say, I've got to put my hands in my pockets, and I say, no, you haven't, because I know what's happening inside their pockets. Are two little clenched.
Okay, that's why they do it. So you can do this even before a performance.
Yes, just open your hands.
So open your hands like this.
Just by your side.
Or by your side. Just make sure they're not clenched together.
Like that. Just like that. Yeah.
Interesting. And I guess you can use that in any situation where you're feeling nervous. Right?
Breathe out and get the space between your hands.
Amazing.
Because you want to do that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And the terrible thing is that people think they need to do that, and they're just literally holding on, aren't they? If you let go,
it's much easier.
Yeah. And I have also noticed that because I say it really interested me, because I think that it's such an essential part of performance that I think you can't escape it. There are very, very few actors that don't get nervous. There are a few, but very few. And I compared notes, because I've got a couple of friends who are pianists, and I compared notes with them. And I reckon it's because acting and being a musician is an interpretive art, not a creative art. It's not an initiated art.
Sure.
Therefore, you're taking somebody else's material and you're performing it.
Right.
You're not creating it as you sit there, sort of thing. Therefore, it is quite scary, because you have got something you've got to fulfill, that you're out of control. And I've talked to them, and they've all said the same thing, which is what the experience I had, and you can only compare notes, is that if you can't control it, what you've got to do is trust your subconscious. That's why you rehearse. That's why they play the piano for hours, or the clarinet. It's so that it's their subconscious is doing it, and their body is doing it, not their conscious mind. So that when you're doing it, you are noticing ridiculous things, like the person in the second row has got a funny hat on, or most likely the props people have forgotten to put your prop there, and you're thinking, dear God, what am I going to do? The letter's not there. So you're going through the performance, and it's all right, because your body knows what to do.
Sure.
You're not. It's an absolute fallacy to think that you are thinking what you're doing, because you're not. You can't. As I say, the pianist said to me, if they think about the next note they're playing, they'll dry. And that has happened to me once, a long time ago. I was in the West End, which is unfortunate. And I was in the middle of a conversation with the other actor on stage, and I suddenly became aware, and I didn't know where I was. And I'd come out of that dream thing, and he was wonderful. He looked at my eyes, and he realized, he just gave me one word, and I went back in. But it was the scariest thing ever, because I'd suddenly become conscious of what I was doing in a funny way.
Okay.
And so I think so the nerves actually are part of the whole caboodle.
It's just a matter of how to deal with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they do enhance. Remember, they're giving you the ability to think very quickly. And it is excitement, not necessarily fear.
Fear. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Margo Annett. Feel free to subscribe, like the video, and if you have any comments, feel free to post them below, and I'll catch you again very, very soon. Take care.